By the time Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor appears on horseback, it's often in the rain, alone, and unsmiling, a striking image of someone stripped of function, removed from royal duties and cut off from meaningful engagement. Andrew's presence in public has been reduced to these rare, almost symbolic moments. But even those outings feel performative, a gesture toward relevance that fades quickly under weight of his isolation. He no longer attends family functions regularly, rarely receives visitors, and avoids charity appearances. What remains is not privacy, but absence, a royal title without a role to play. Each image of him now feeds a narrative that he cannot shake, a prince not just disgraced but directionless. The Royal Lodge, once a hub of aristocratic life, now serves as a backdrop for his quiet exit. As his routines replace responsibilities and silence replaces scrutiny, Andrew's life reads like a slow fade from the public ledger. The impending loss of his home threatens to sever the last physical tie to his royal past, forcing him to reckon with a future that looks nothing like the one he was born into. The man who once strode confidently behind his mother's coffin, wrapped in ceremonial military garb and adorned with royal honors, now spends most of his days alone, slouched in front of a television screen. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, the Duke of York, is not just out of sight, he's out of orbit. His daily routine has reportedly become so monotonous that palace insiders describe him as a couch potato, clinging to the one thing he still controls, his schedule. Even that, however, is shrinking. There are no charity events, no ribbon cuttings, no public handshakes or stage photo ops. Just early breakfast, long hours of TV, and the occasional walk around the grounds. It's a striking fall for a man who once thrived on the status of royal life. Now, what remains is a shell of routine and ritual, habits that seem to serve more as coping mechanisms than leisure. His refuge? The Royal Lodge. A sprawling estate in Windsor that once buzzed with royal activity but now stands quiet. Since 2003,
if you love getting the real story behind the palace walls, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update.
This has been Andrew's Safe Haven, a 30-room property that, for the longest time, symbolizes status. But now, it represents something far more fragile, his last stand. His clinging to this place with everything he has, even as plans to force him out quietly circle above. The lodge isn't just his home, it's his entire world. Staff say it has grown so attached to its routines and layout that the thought of leaving it has become nearly unbearable. In a palace full of change, scandal, and shuffled roles, Royal Lodge is the one constant that Andrew has left. And yet, even this sanctuary is slipping through his fingers. Much of Andrew's current situation can be traced back to one word: scandal. The Epstein case didn't just damage his reputation, it detonated it. Once the news exploded and the infamous BBC interview aired, there was no royal protocol that could save him. His public role was suspended for the foreseeable future, and his patronages vanished in the months that followed. From that moment on, it was clear Andrew was no longer welcome in the spotlight, and the royal family, always so careful to maintain the institution, treated his downfall as a closed chapter.
If you love getting the real story behind the palace walls, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update.
But for Andrew, it never ended. The scrutiny, the shame, the lingering questions, they become the wallpaper of his everyday life. And while the world focused its gaze elsewhere, on Kate's graceful diplomacy, William's royal responsibilities, or Harry and Meghan's American adventures, Andrew's slow-motion exile unfolded in the background. There was no dramatic statement, just a steady, quiet withdrawal. The contrast between his downfall and the poised presence of other royals only sharpened the image of Andrew as a family's unspoken problem. He hasn't been formally exiled, but in many ways, he's more alone than ever. No major family events. No warm public moments. No affectionate glances from the cameras. Just the quiet, stale air of his lodge and a calendar free of obligations. Reports say visitors are few and far between. He doesn't entertain like he once did. Friends who used to be fixtures in his inner circle have stopped coming around. The mood inside Royal Lodge is said to be somber, even bitter. Staff claim Andrew feels abandoned, not just by the public, but by his own family. The once sociable prince has turned inward, surrounded by silence and old portraits. And yet, he still insists on control. His days follow strict patterns. Wake early. Watch television. Ride, if the weather permits. Keep to familiar routines. Every action, down to meal times and room arrangements, is calibrated to maintain a sense of order. It's as if the rituals are doing the heavy lifting for a man trying to keep chaos at bay. Even his outdoor activities, once signs of leisure and privilege, now feel like acts of escape. His still spotted riding horses or swinging golf clubs. But there's no joy in these sightings. They are more symbolic than anything else. A man in the rain on horseback, away from the cameras, away from the conversations, doing whatever he can to avoid the reality of his situation. He rarely attends family functions, and when he does, his presence is awkward, unwelcome by some, tolerated by others. His role is undefined. He is not a working royal, but he still holds the title of prince. That lingering identity adds another layer of discomfort, both for him and for the family trying to move on without acknowledging the elephant in the drawing room. Inside the lodge, things are reportedly meticulous. Every room curated to Andrew's preference. Every decision filtered through his need for routine. Insiders say he micromanages details down to the brand of tea served or the arrangement of cushions. It's not indulgence, it's control. The one thing he still has full authority over. His not preparing for a comeback, his bracing for an eviction. Discussions about moving him out of Royal Lodge have only grown louder. And though no date has been confirmed, the pressure is mounting. For Andrew, it's a final insult, not just losing status, but losing the very walls that have kept his unraveling private. The legal issues surrounding him may no longer dominate headlines, but they haven't gone away. His name remains linked to one of the most explosive scandals of the century. And even without new developments, the shadow is enough to keep him in the margins. The reality is, no amount of routine or isolation can change what the public remembers. The couch potato label isn't just a jab at his lifestyle, it's a symbol of decline. The man who once shook hands with world leaders is now a recluse with a remote, trying to forget what the world refuses to. And the lodge? It's not just property, it's a last relic of the life he used to live. It's where he once entertained, once played the part of prince. And now, it's a fortress against shame. But even fortresses crumble. With the royal purse strings tightening and the optics of his continued residence becoming more toxic by the day, the writing is on the walls. What comes after the lodge? That's the question. There's no plan B that the public knows of. No clear destination. Just a prince, aging, isolated, and increasingly irrelevant, being quietly ushered out of the only space that still feels like home. Some close to him say he's embittered. Others say he's resigned. But all agree, he is not at peace. The rituals, the silence, the isolation, it's all part of a larger withdrawal, a man shrinking from the public eye, perhaps permanently. Whether this is a temporary retreat or the last chapter of his royal presence, nobody's quite sure. What is clear is that Andrew's life, once shaped by power, privilege, and prestige, is now defined by what is lost. His fall wasn't sudden. It was slow, and it's still unfolding. He may still wear the title, but the crown, the duties, the respect, they are all long gone. If you ask insiders what Andrew's typical day looks like now, they'll tell you it's a portrait of routine obsession. There's a particular chair in the TV room he always uses. He watches the same channels. His meals are delivered at the exact same time. It's not just comfort, it's control. The kind that fills the silence with something predictable. That's the part of this that feels the most haunting. It's not the absence of duty, it's the lack of purpose. For decades, he was buffered by a system that told him who to be and what to do. Now, without those structures, there's nothing to replace them. The daily rituals aren't about living, they're about coping. This isn't the image of a disgraced man plotting a return. It's the image of someone who's stuck. There's no strategy, no PR repair, no slow climb back into relevance. It's static. The Royal Lodge might as well be a bunker. He's retreated so far inward that even those closest to him struggle to get through. Those who remained in contact say the conversations rarely move past surface level. He talks about the grounds, the weather, maybe a horse or news headline, but never the scandal, never the lawsuit, never the fallout. It's all boxed away, like a part of the house no one's allowed to enter. Even his appearance reflects the inward spiral. While he still dresses neatly, military precision never leaves a royal upbringing. There's a dullness behind it now, a stiffness, like his putting on the uniform of a man who used to matter. No royal engagements, no flags, no handshakes, just a prince with nowhere to be. What once made Andrew recognizable, his swagger, his comfort in front of the camera, his position as a queen favorite, has all eroded. The cameras don't chase him anymore. When he is seen, it's either in grainy telephoto shots or uncomfortable glimpses during rare family events. Even then, his presence feels more tolerated than welcomed. Compare that to the rest of the royal family. Catherine, even in difficult times, continues to exude duty and grace. William is taking on more and more. Charles, despite controversies of his own, has stepped firmly into the role of monarch. Even Harry, with all the drama in tow, is writing a new chapter across the Atlantic. Andrew, though, frozen in Act 3, with the curtain halfway down. The institution has recalibrated around him. He is no longer part of the machinery. He is the ghost in the corner of the room, acknowledged, but only when absolutely necessary. It's not exile by name, but it's exile in everything that matters. And yet, Royal Lodge remains a one line he won't cross. He sees it as proof that he hasn't lost everything, that he still belongs, that, even if the world outside has changed, the one inside those walls hasn't. He has fought hard to keep it, and he may win that fight. But at what cost? Every legal maneuver, every quiet negotiation to hold onto the estate just sharpens a contrast. A royal who no longer works, clinging to a property paid for by privilege. It's not just bad optics, it's bad legacy. And legacy, ironically, is all he has left to lose. The irony is brutal. By holding on so tightly to the symbols of his past, he's made his present even more visible. Every time his name surfaces in connection to the lodge or the scandal, it's a reminder of the story that hasn't gone away. The palace may have stripped him of titles, but it couldn't strip away public memory. Even though the lawsuit was settled out of court, the implications linger. The accusations, the infamous friendship with Epstein, the disastrous BBC interview, none of it disappears. It's all catalogued permanently in the digital court of public opinion, and silence doesn't change the verdict. He might argue that he's paid the price, lost his titles, his patronages, his duties, but has never said it himself, never stepped up to take responsibility publicly. And that absence, that refusal to engage, makes the public even less forgiving. It's not just what he did, it's how he handled the aftermath. Contrast that with how other royals have faced missteps. Even the thinnest gesture of humility or transparency tends to soften the blow. With Andrew, there's just avoidance. The stiff upper lip turned into a wall. And so, the lodge grows quieter. No official visitors. No packed calendars. Just horses in the stable and newspapers by the door. It's not just a royal residence anymore. It's a symbol of the distance between Andrew and the world he used to dominate. Every empty room tells part of that story. Even staff, reportedly, rotate more frequently than they once did. The atmosphere is draining. There's only so long someone can work in a space built on routine and silence without feeling it seep into their own lives. For some, the lodge has become a metaphor for Andrew himself. Still intact, still standing, but hollow. What's left now is speculation. Will he ever reappear in a meaningful way? Will he ever speak publicly about what's happened? Or will he spend the rest of his days inside that lodge, maintaining routines as the world moves on without him? At this point, no one expects a grand re-entrance. Even the notion of rehabilitation feels out of reach. The royal brand is about stability, trust, and duty. Andrew's name doesn't align with any of those values anymore. His future, if it exists at all, isn't public, it's personal. And judging by the life he's built in isolation, he may not want a public future anyway. In many ways, he's already written his final chapter. It just hasn't been printed yet. The story of Prince Andrew won't end with a final scandal or a formal announcement. It'll end with silence, with a slow fade, with a once senior royal spending the rest of his life surrounded by reminders of a past he can't return to, and a future he never planned for. That's the real tragedy here. Not just the fall, but the denial, the belief that, By preserving his rituals and defending his turf, he can somehow pause the consequences. But time keeps moving, and sooner or later, Royal Lodge won't be enough to keep it all at bay. There's a strange kind of stillness that has settled over Royal Lodge, the kind that doesn't come from peace, but from the absence of movement, of laughter, of activity, of purpose. The house stands frozen in time, a grand shell of what it once was. It's not abandoned, but it feels deserted. For Andrew, this isn't just home. It's the last place where he had some sense of role, even if that role was fading. Those who've worked there speak of a strange atmosphere, like walking into a museum curated by someone who doesn't want visitors. Lavish furnishings, untouched. Dining rooms no longer used. Entire wings barely entered. Every creak of the floorboards echoes the silence of a life reduced to routine and reclusion. And behind those closed doors, Andrew waits. For what exactly? No one knows. There's no roadmap back to public life, no rehabilitation campaign in motion. The family has moved on. The public has moved on. Even the tabloids, once obsessed, now report on him with detached inevitability. He is no longer controversial, just irrelevant. But he hasn't moved. Not emotionally, not physically. Still rooted to the same address, still adhering to the same schedule, still hoping that perhaps, somehow, time will reverse itself. Those close to him say he hasn't fully accepted what's happened. There's a quiet refusal in him, a denial that what's been lost is, in fact, gone for good. He does leave the house, but only in predictable bursts. A morning ride, an afternoon walk, always alone or with minimal company. Photographers sometimes catch him mid-trot or headed to the stables, his face fixed in stern concentration, as though trying to outrun the inevitable. Even those who sympathize with him find the isolation difficult to understand. There's no sign of engagement, no project, no attempt at reinvention, just maintenance, of space, of routine, of self-image. It's less like living and more like preserving a museum exhibit labeled former royal. Sources say he keeps tabs on media coverage, though he rarely comments on it. The stories frustrate him, but not enough to provoke action. There's no damage control, no counter-narrative, just quiet seething and more retreat. When friends do call a visit, on the rare occasion, they are met with a man who can talk about horses, golf, or television, but not about the future. He is reportedly still surrounded by reminders of his past life. Framed photos, uniforms, memorabilia, all in their place, untouched. It's not nostalgia, it's insistence, as if decorating his surroundings with the past might stop it from slipping away entirely. But the past isn't polite. It doesn't fade just because you ignore it. The Epstein scandal is never far from view. It doesn't matter how many statements is issued or how long it's been since the lawsuit was settled. That association has cemented itself. His attempts to distance from it are ultimately drowned out by the sheer weight of the narrative. What makes it worse is the silence, the lack of visible reckoning. No public apology, no transparency, just a quiet retreat. And in a media environment that thrives on spectacle, Andrew's avoidance reads not as remorse, but as arrogance. That perception has only hardened over time. Now, even his defenders are scarce. In the early days, there were whispers of unfair treatment, of media exaggeration, but those voices have dwindled. What remains is resignation. A collective understanding that Andrew's royal career is over, and there's no public appetite for his return. His name is now synonymous with disgrace, and no palace memo can undo that. The looming eviction from Royal Lodge might be the final blow. Even though he's resisted, even though he's dug in his heels, the writing is on the walls, literally and figuratively. The crown wants to move forward, and he represents everything they are trying to leave behind. He won't go quietly, though. Sources say is fiercely protective of his right to stay. The lodge, after all, isn't just a home. It's leverage, it's status. It's the last tangible symbol of royal relevance he still holds, and is using every available argument, tenure, contracts, personal history, to keep it. But the longer he stays, the worse the optics get. A prince living in a taxpayer-funded estate, stripped of royal duties, dodging public accountability. It's not exactly a winning image. And yet, Andrew doesn't seem to care about the optics anymore. He cares about the walls, the land, the routine. When asked about the future, those in his circle give vague answers. There's no plan, no next chapter, just survival. He's not looking for redemption. He's hoping for endurance, that if he stays quiet long enough, people will forget. But that hope is as misguided as it is tragic, because what the world sees isn't just a man fallen from grace. It's a man frozen in place, a royal relic caught between scandal and silence, waiting for a call that's never coming. And even if it did, what would he do with it? The version of Andrew that once charmed the public is long gone. What's left is someone barely holding on. Even the palace, normally so guarded in its internal politics, has grown colder. There's no plan to integrate him back into working life. No public shows of support. Just distance. Courtiers avoid his name. Press releases never mention him. Events come and go without his presence. He has become the family's invisible member, technically there, but functionally removed. And yet, he still signs letters as Her Royal Highness. Still clings to protocol. Still lives like a man who might return to favor. It's that disconnect between perception and reality that makes his isolation feel less like punishment and more like delusion. What remains to be seen is whether this quiet exile ever becomes permanent. There's always a chance that circumstances change, that public sentiment softens, or that the institution finds a use for him again. But let's be honest, that's unlikely. His role is no longer ceremonial, charitable, or symbolic. It's cautionary. Andrew has become the embodiment of what happens when scandal meets silence, when status collides with scrutiny, and when an institution decides it's safer to erase and to explain. No matter how tight he holds onto the lodge, or the title, or the memory of relevance, the public chapter of his life is closed. The image of Prince Andrew today is one of contrast, royalty without reign, entitlement without audience. It's a life measured not in milestones but in rituals. The same path walked each morning, the same walls passed every evening. He's not just avoiding the public, he's avoiding change. And that might be the most revealing detail of all. He's not plotting redemption. He's trying to hold the world still, to freeze a frame before it all went wrong. But time doesn't pause for anyone, not even a prince. And in the stillness of Royal Lodge, the echo of what used to be has become louder than anything that remains. This isn't just a story of a man in decline. It's the story of a man who never adapted, who couldn't, who clung to status while the world rewrote his role. His withdrawal isn't a mystery, it's a defense. A retreat into a place where no one can take anything more from him, because there's nothing left to give. So the question now isn't whether Andrew can come back. It's whether he even wants to, and whether the people and the palace are prepared to let him fade completely. If you made it this far, you're officially deep in the royal rabbit hole. Hit that like button if you want more inside looks like this. Drop a comment if you think the Royal Lodge standoff will ever end. And don't forget to subscribe. You won't want to miss what's coming next.